Hello, and welcome to 5 Minute Math. Today we are looking at the 7th grade concept of operational word problems. This is 7.3b Readiness Practice, the advanced version. If you are interested in the 7.3b Readiness Practice for the intermediate or proficient versions, or the Readiness Practice resource aligned with any other standard, you can find those by using the link in the video description. So we've got a recipe that calls for 1.5, and I'm going to go ahead and make this a 1.5. So 1.5 cups of flour, I'm going to put 1.5 C, makes 24 cookies. And I'm going to make that a CK. Sarah wants to make 60 cookies. Okay, so I'm going to set up a proportion here. We need to make 60 cookies. Okay, how many cups of flour will she need? Well, I could find the unit rate, right? But I've already got a proportion set up here. Let's use cross multiplication. We know that if we multiply these two right here, 1.5 times 60, I'm going to make that x unknown. That's going to equal 24x. So let's use this method here. So I'm going to multiply my 60 times the 1.5. That's going to be 300. And then 60. So that's going to end up with one decimal there because I've got one decimal in my factors. I've got 90. So 90 equals 24x. I need to divide both sides by 24 to get that x isolated. So now let's divide 90 by 24. And obviously we are going to have some uh, decimals that we're going to need to deal with, right? So that's going to be 2, 3. It's going to get me 72. And that's going to get me 18 left. And let's see if I do 5, 6, 7. Let's see if I can try 7. I'm not sure what that's going to be, but we'll give it a shot. That's going to be 140, 168. Yeah, that's going to work. So 7, 168. And that's going to give me 12. And there we go. That's going to give me a nice even 5, because that's 120. 24 times 5 is 120. All right, so how many cups of flour will she need? 3.75. I'm going to go ahead and put that back in mixed number form. So 0.75 is 3/4. So 3 3/4 cups. So let's put a green box around that. But we've got another question. If Sarah has 4 1/4 cups of flour, how many more batches of 24 cookies could she make after making the 60? Okay, so she has 4 1/4 cups of flour. All right, so let's go back to what we have right here. So I'm going to go back to my unit rate, or at least my initial proportion of 1.5 cups over the 24 cookies. But now what I have is a new amount of cups of flour. This is going to be 4.25, because remember, my 1/4 makes the 0.25 cups of flour. Here's my question is, I'll make that my x right there. So let's do some cross multiplication here. We can do that same thing. So 1.5x is going to equal to the 24 times the 4.25. So let's see what that's going to be. 4.25, 24. That's going to be 20. That's 10. That's 17. And then that's 10. That's 5. And that's 8. And that is going to be 102, because I've got 2 digits behind the decimal, 2 digits behind the decimal. So it's 1.5x equals 102. So now we need to divide both sides by 1.5. And we have 102 divided by 1.5. That will isolate that x. And what we want to do is we never want to have a decimal in our divisor. So let's multiply this by 10. Let's multiply this by 10. So it's 15 into 1020. It's going to just be a little bit cleaner for us. So I think we could do 6 times, almost 7, but not quite. That's going to give me 90. That's going to be 120. And I can do 7 times now, because that is going to be 105. Actually, I can do 8 times, and that's going to get me right to where I need to. So 15 times 8 actually is 120, so we're good there. All right, so here's my new total, right? So if I had 4.25 cups of flour makes, then I've got 68. Now, here's my question. My question doesn't say how much can uh, Sarah make. Uh, the question is, if she has 4 1/4 cups of flour, how many more batches of 24 cookies could she make after she makes the 60? So if we've already made this 60 right here, right, that means that she's got this 4 1/4 cups, right? Now, what we have here is after she makes the 60, well, if she's already made the 60, she's only made 8 more. So 4 1/4 cups make 68 cookies. And then so that just makes 8 more. That's 8 more than 60. So here's my question. My question is, how many more batches of 24? Well, she makes 8 out of 24. She didn't even make a full batch after that 60. She makes an extra 8 after the 60. So we can actually show our answer in simplified form as 1/3. So that was definitely a tricky one here. She can make it 1/3 of a batch because it's only 8 more than that 60. So we'll kind of put that right there. Next, we've got a temperature, and we've got increasing and decreasing, and right at the very back, they tell us what our starting temperature is. Okay, so I'm just going to make a vertical number line, and that's going to kind of represent, I'm going to put this right here, 68. I'm going to make that represent our thermometer here, and we are going to drop 4.6 degrees Fahrenheit for every 7 minutes, every minute for 7 minutes. So what I have is I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Each of these drops is going to be 4.6. So let's figure that out first. 4.6 degrees every minute for 7 minutes. That's going to be 42. That's 28. That's 32. 32.2. Okay, so this is a drop of minus 32.2. Now I started at 68, so let's make that a 68.0. So I can subtract, and that's going to be 7. That's 8, 5. All right, so right here, make this blue. At this point now, I am at 35.8. That's that first step. Then it increased by 2.4 over the next 3 minutes. So I'll do some green, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, right? And that is going to be, I'll put this right here, 2.4 times 3. So let's figure out what that is. 2.4 times 3 is 12, 7.2. So I'm going to take my 35.8, I'm going to add 7.2, then I will get my answer, and I'll just go ahead and put it in blue here. So 0, that's 6, that's 13, and that's 4. Okay, so the final temperature is going to be right here, and that is going to be 43 degrees. So let me just put this right here, 43 degrees Fahrenheit. And let's put a box around it. That is my final temperature. For our third problem, we've got recipes here. And a recipe calls for, we got a whole bunch of fractions. So let's say I need 2/3 a cup of sugar. Okay. I need 1/4 cup of batter. So I'm going to put a B right there. And then I'm going to put 1/2 a cup of milk. I want to make 3 batches of the recipe. Okay. So let's figure out what I need. So this is one batch. One batch. So if I want to make 3 batches, I'm literally just going to multiply each of these by 3. So let's just multiply by 3. And remember, when we multiply, if we want to do multiplication of fractions, you can always make your 3 into 3/1. So it's a little bit easier to visualize. And now you're just going to multiply straight across. So let's say 3 batches. Let's figure out what I need. So that's going to end up being 6/3 or 2 cups of sugar. I'm going to need 3/4 cups of butter. And then I'm going to need 3/2 or 1 1/2 cup of milk. Now, let's see what we have. I'm going to do like this right here. That's what I need. And this is what I have. I have 1 1/2 cups of sugar. So 1 1/2 cup of sugar. I have 1 cup of butter. And I have 2 cups of milk. You go next door and borrow 0.75 cups of sugar. So I'm going to go ahead and change that into a fraction. That's 75 hundredths, right? So 0.75 is the same as 75 hundredths. Simplify to make 3/4. All right, so I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And I'm going to add 1/8 of a cup of butter. And I'm not adding any more milk. All right, so I need to take my 1 1/2 and add 3/4. Well, one way to think about this is 1/2, right? So let's look at it this way. I'm going to kind of bring this up here. So 1 1/2, I'm going to rewrite that as 1 2/4 because 1/2 is the same as 2/4. Now I can add my 3/4 because I've got the same denominator. So really that's going to make 1 5/4. Now it's kind of strange to see a mixed number with an improper fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reimagine that 5/4. That equals 1 1/4. Now what we can't forget is I've already got a 1. So it's a 1 plus that 1 1/4. So really, it's 2 1/4. So this is 2 1/4. This is pretty easy. This is 1 1/8. That's sugar, that's butter, and I haven't added any more milk. So let's go back and look to see what I need. I need, where does it say that? All right. This 3 batches right here. So this 2, let me bring this over here. This 3/4 here, and this 1 1/2 here. So I'm just going to kind of bring this right over here. Here's the question. If what I have is greater than what I need, I'm good. Greater than or equal to. So is 2 1/4 greater than or equal to 2? Yes. Is 1 1/8 greater than 3/4? Yes. Is 2 greater than 1 1/2? Yes. So do I have enough? Yes. As long as I had greater than or equal to, I'll say yes, you have enough. And that is all we need to do. I'll say enough ingredients. So what we need to do for this one. If you are interested in exploring the 7.3b readiness practice for the intermediate or proficient version, or the readiness practice resource aligned with any other standard, you can find those by using the link in the video description.